Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, a long-standing supporter of the resistance, former Conservative MP, former President of the International Committee in Defence of Camps Ashraf and Liberty. A big welcome for Brian Binley.
Thank you, and let me tell you, I'm not going to sing, so you will be relieved about that, because I can't sing a note. You wouldn't if I sang, believe me. Dear friends, can I say salam? How wonderful it is. How wonderful to be with you again. And what a magnificent gathering you put on for the people who are speaking and who will follow today. You are the heart of the supporters in this country, and I pay tribute to you, because without you, this cause would have been lost long ago. But it isn't lost, and we are winning. So, can I say it's great to see such an impressive turnout in support of a free and democratic Iran. And the NCRI, led by my very good friend, one of the world's great women, I refer to Madam Maryam Rajavi. I am pleased to once again join cross-party colleagues in standing with you and with the Iranian people, who we all know have risen up against the regime with nationwide protests. Today, let me pick my speech up before I carry on. You see, the mullahs are trying to disrupt even this organization. Let me again say the regime has also moved to arrest hundreds of PMOI supporters and their families in Iran, because the popular protests they are making are underlining and damaging the very regime and the survival of the medieval theocracy that still retains government powers in Iran, which should have been turned over many years ago. Can I say that the regime has also moved to arrest hundreds of PMOI supporters and their families, because the popular protests are shaking the very foundation of the regime. Our new government in Westminster should recognise this. The regime is showing with its own actions that we should recognise the NCRI and Madam Rajavi as its leader if we want to increase pressure on the regime to abandon its malign activities in the region. I support what other speakers have said today and hope that the end of this brutal regime will come sooner rather than later. I brought the same message to our friends in Albania, whom I had the honour to visit last week. I told them, as I tell you, we will continue to call on our government and the new Prime Minister to back the democratic aspirations of the Iranian people, the Iranian resistance movement, and Madam Rajavi, as they present a true and viable alternative to the current regime. I will do everything to work together with my other colleagues to urge Boris Johnson, a friend and the new British MP, to adopt a decisive policy vis-à-vis the mullahs and support Mrs. Rajavi and the PMOI. It is, after all, in our nation's interest These attacks that we've witnessed over the past months clearly show that the Iranian regime considers the NCRI as its main threat. On several occasions, senior regime officials, including the Supreme Leader, have acknowledged the success of the PMOI in organising the anti-regime protests across Iran and warned about the growing support for the Iranian resistance movement and for Madam Rajavi in Iran. The regime has also moved to arrest hundreds of PMOI supporters and their families in Iran because the popular protests are shaking the very foundations of the regime. I therefore want to finish with this promise to you. I said when I went to speak to the people in Ashraf 3 that I would talk with Boris Johnson, our new Prime Minister, and I would urge him to meet with those supporters of this movement who are politicians and supporters of politicians. And I would call upon Boris Johnson to ensure that we do meet, because he needs to change the policy which has been pursued by previous governments who seem to be frightened where there's no need to fear, frightened to oppose the regime in Iran. We know it's an evil regime. We know it's a false regime. We know it's a regime not supported by the people. We need to take that message to Boris Johnson, and I promise you that I will do all I can with my colleagues to do just that. We need change in the British government, and I expect change to happen. It's good to see you.